Well, good morning. I've been at this location before, many a times before. But once again, I'm diverting away from my usual tactics, bringing you something what I think will be a little bit special. You might have noticed in some of your locations as of recent, the carp have been just below the surface. Very lethargic. Spawn is over. And it doesn't seem they want to put their noses down for anything. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, there must be a piece of the puzzle I'm missing. Well, I'm going to show you a tactic today that is pretty unpopular here in Ontario. I don't see a lot of people doing it. And I think the big reason for it is just because of how difficult it truly is. But when you can somehow turn that session into a one-fish day, it is totally worth it. I personally have done very well with this method, especially at this location, and that is probably the key here, and that is location. So today I'm going to be showcasing floater fishing for carp. Now, throughout Europe and the UK, floater fishing for carp is, that's just a way of life. Summertime comes around and the carp just stop feeding on bottom baits, and they seem to come up to the surface, and they're taking bugs off, and they're more willing to take bait off the top than they are off the bottom. Makes sense. A lot more oxygen up top, especially on these shallower lakes that they have in the UK. And here in Ontario, most people would probably look at that as well, that looks like fun. But have you ever met our waterfowl? Most Ontarians, including myself, kind of look at floater fishing with this sort of, for every carp I catch, I'll probably catch 20 ducks, 3 geese, and a swan. And, it doesn't seem like a very good option in Ontario, but you'd be mistaken. If you find the right body of water, as I have here, you don't have any waterfowl. Yeah, you heard me correctly. There is no waterfowl on this lake. I've literally come here so many times, May all the way until November, and I have never seen much more than like a pod of geese going across the center of the lake, and then they take off and fly away. I've never seen ducks on the shoreline here, and it's fingers crossed it stays that way, because I can actually float fish for carp here. That is unbelievable. That is such an awesome opportunity. But maybe you have a few locations close to you as well that these carp are willing to take things off the top. People, maybe they throw their bread to feed the ducks and there's carp right behind them. So let's talk a little bit about that. Well, how could we possibly catch a carp off the top? Well, today I've got some cat food. We're not catfishing, we're carping. But these little buggers here will float on the surface. And better than that, if you read the ingredient list on here, which is somewhere, it does say that there's a bunch of different meals, and there's brown rice proteins, and you've got some fish flavoring in there as well. So it kind of does smell like a giant trout pellet, really. And it's highly nutritious, so it's going to give them a reason to come up to the top. So a few free offerings scattered across the surface, and you should be able to draw in a few fish, and hopefully you'll start seeing the little mouths coming up. And to greet those little mouths, I've got my little rig here. I'll show you now. Size 8 hook to a 10 millimeter pineapple and butric by sticky baits. Sorry, wow, sticky baits, 10 millimeter, and that is actually to a water float. So got about 2 feet of 6-pound mono here, and that comes up to this little water float right here. Now, many of you might be familiar with the Bolt machine and a few of the other products available by Corda as well that allow these anglers to cast a significant distance away with a floating bait. Now, these little water floats, they're extremely cheap. And they'll do just about the same thing. I can get about 30 yards quite comfortably with this rig, and still have optimal sensitivity. So I highly recommend looking into these guys, because I mean, honestly, if you're going to be floater fishing, you're probably not going to be casting a great distance away, or else you won't be able to bring it back quickly enough if you needed to pull it away from a goose or, you know, a bit of waterfowl, if they just so happen to show up. So anyway, a 6-pound mono, and that comes back to a 10-pound mainline. And I'm running that on a Nash Outlaw 2 1/4 test curve and just a very small bait runner style reel. So with any luck, I am seeing them surface out there. They're not on my bait quite yet. They're still a little ways out. Typically I found here that these fish slowly make their way towards the shoreline. So I'm going to put some free offerings in there, and with any luck, I'll start to see little mouths pop up, and the next time we tune in together, hopefully I'll be into a fish. Since those baits have been in longer, they probably created more of a flavor in the water. So we created a bit. No way. Oh, bugger. Brilliant. Incredible. It's taken a little while here. Fish is most certainly lethargic. not going to sit here and pretend like that was easy. That was a very testing few hours, but what a little reward we got here. One little small carp from this lake What an absolute beauty. So pumped. Well, what an absolute blast that was. The blank saver. Epic. You know, for a minute or two there, more like an hour or two, I really thought that I was going to be ending this video on a bleak note. But with that fish, I think it illustrates the point. This was a particularly tough day of fishing, and with a viable method, an underexploited method, I was able to pull it off. I was able to pull that one fish. It was a small fish, and most of you are probably rolling your eyes at the fact that I just caught probably a 2-pound carp, but that's what I expect out of this lake. That's pretty much what you're guaranteed to catch here. You know, you're going to catch a couple of 2-3 pounders. There's a couple of, you know, low double-digit commons in here, but there's no real monstrous fish in here. But that doesn't mean that what I just did today could not be done in an area with much larger fish. You know, you need to find the perfect synthesis of all the right variables. You need to have, you know, some shallow water. You need to have some pretty flat water. You need to look for a place with no waterfowl. Good luck. I did it, so it is possible, but you know, you're going to be struggling, I'm sure, to find a spot without waterfowl. But if you can put all those pieces together, and if you can put out some bread flake, some cat food, some dog food, what have you, you might be able to pull it off. And what an incredible way to fish. I hope that this video has been both entertaining as well as educational, and hopefully a little bit motivational to get you out there and trying new things. You know, I can tell you that when I first looked at surface fishing for carp as an option at this location, nothing got me more excited. You know, seeing that first fish take up off the surface was absolutely incredible, and it continues to be exciting every single time I come out here. Until next time, tight lines. I think I'm gonna go for a swim. Let's go.